I feel like I carried just the weight of the world on my shoulders in my backpack. Just was generally just a worried kid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just was anxious about everything. Just, if I saw something in the news that upset me, I'd think about that. If I heard that someone else was upset, I'd think about that for days. Like, I just sort of felt like I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders all the time, and maybe worried about too much stuff that I couldn't control. And that perhaps I shouldn't have been worrying about as a little kid.
Yeah, and you're not sure that you can actually tell anyone about it. You almost think that it's yours to hold, yours to literally carry with you.
I remember I used to watch this TV show called The Land Before Time. Do you ever remember that?
Oh,
with
the
dinosaurs?
That was
And
great show.
it was a great show, and I watched it, and then I went to my mum and dad afterwards. I went, are dinosaurs in heaven? And they said yes, and I got scared. I didn't want to die because if I'd go and see dinosaurs in heaven, so I was always worried about that.
Because there'd be a T-Rex up there.
There'd be a T-Rex up there.
What a nightmare.
Yeah, awful.
So you were scared of
I
the
was-
idea of dying?
Well, I was so scared I was so scared, but it's an anxious thing, right? Obviously, I was scared of dying, and I didn't want to leave my parents. You know, that was the thought of your parents going was like the scariest thing in the entire world, or me leaving my parents. So for me, that was so terrifying.
Yeah, my parents were older parents. Like, my parents had me a little bit later, so they were a lot older than my friends' parents. So I worried a lot about my parents getting old, my parents dying. Now people have kids a lot later in life, and that's a little bit more normal, I think. But like, they were quite old compared to my friends' parents. So I always felt really like scared of them dying, like scared of losing people, definitely.
And I think when you're little and you have those first experiences of death, I remember my grandma dying, two grandmas dying, and then actually a friend dying, and a friend of the family. And I remember that being a reset. Like, I almost look back and know that was when that thing got put in my backpack. And then it stays with you, because as you get older, you get more and more scared of death because it becomes more and more common. But to feel it from a young age, it sort of never leaves you.
And I don't think I really knew necessarily. I didn't know what anxiety was, or that's what I was suffering with.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if I'd had like counselling maybe as a kid to like get some of the stuff out of that backpack and get that weight off my shoulders a little bit, it might have meant that my mental health was better as an adult. But actually, I didn't start looking into counselling and stuff like that until I was an adult. Because with kids, we just assume that their mental health is fine. But I would have like sweaty hands, or I would always be like breathing like this, like I can't breathe. And my mum would take me for like asthma tests, and they'd be like, she's fine. And then when I was an adult, they were like, you're having panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been having panic attacks my whole life since I was little.
At school, I used to get a lump in my throat, and I didn't know what it was, and I felt like, I couldn't swallow and those kind of things, and it was obviously anxiety, but I just didn't know what it was, and so I got so scared of it that every night I would go to sleep, I'd have this lump in my throat.
And actually, as an adult, if you go to the doctors or whatever, and they say that thing you're getting is anxiety, like, it goes away then for a bit. Like, that in itself can really help it to go away. So if we just sort of had that said to us when we were kids, we'd have been so much better. I think we're not necessarily always honest with children, and that's maybe the problem, is that all these things, if you just felt like you could ask about are the dinosaurs in heaven, or if we felt like we could talk about these things a little bit more, losing family members and stuff, we might have been a little bit healthier.
It was only in recent years that myself and my brothers sat around the dinner table with my mum and dad and talked about our experiences of racism growing up.
Really?
And we'd never thought it was an issue. We didn't feel like it was something we could talk about or necessarily needed to talk about. But, we'd all been bullied for being different and just held it in. It's one of those things we're just like, just get on with it. We're stronger. It's fine. But actually, a lot of it really built up, and I just put so much pressure on myself as a child. And I think that a lot of kids feel that pressure, and you don't realise it's okay not to be okay. Yeah, and it's sometimes once the backpack has got too heavy. And that's the thing. If we, at a younger age, knew that it was okay to just chat about it, to talk about these things, we could alleviate it before it gets too late or before it gets too heavy.
We've all struggled mentally in some way. So, mental health doesn't discriminate. Like, no matter where you're from as a kid, how many siblings you've got, whatever the situation is, there's going to be something you're going through that's a bit hard to deal with on your own.
Completely. I didn't speak about my anxiety for so long because I was scared that it would make me different, or that people would look at me funny, or I was strange, and so I just never said anything ever for so long. And then I'm not crying, it's just a thing in my throat, I promise. So you guys are aware. Yeah.
It would be fine
But it would be fine if I was. It would be fine if I was. Yeah, I don't want to cry. But I didn't want to be different or anything strange, and so then I didn't talk about it for ages. And I remember I spoke to my friend one of my best friends called Toby, I call him Bubble, and I phoned him up and said, I don't feel good. And he said, don't worry, we'll go through it together.
Oh, cute.
When I was at school, I used to literally just take on too much stuff. It sounds so trivial, but it would feel like the biggest thing in the world. I would get so stressed out and I'd have a breakdown once every term, where I'd just like put too much stuff in the diary, promise too many people I would do too many things with them, try and be in every single extracurricular thing that was going on. And I had this one teacher, Mrs. Clough, our dance teacher, who totally understood, and she would always let me come when I was feeling like I was going to explode. I'd have that feeling like I was bubbling over, and I would need a cry, but I didn't want to cry in front of anyone. And she'd let me come to her classroom or to where she was teaching dance, and I would just get to sit with her, and she would just be like, you just sit there, it's okay, take however long you need. And she'll carry on with the class, and she'll keep me saying, you okay? And she'll give me a little squeeze on the shoulder, a little squeeze of the hand. And I don't know if she'll ever know how important that was, because I felt like I had a safe space, a little haven, a little place I could go and just cool down. I literally just needed to cool, and it was like she just got it, and she didn't have to say or do much. It was just providing that, and I'm forever grateful. I feel like everyone needs a Mrs. Clough for when they need to cool down.
Oh, shout out Mrs. Clough.
I had Miss Faith, who was amazing, and just sort of was so supportive and like that. So true, you don't realise what these people do for you, right? Which is the most amazing thing. But the other thing is this sounds bizarre, but I remember when I was really young, I used to have things called, I had Little Beavy and Silky, and I used to talk to teddies. About stuff.
Cute little Beavy and Silky.
And I used to talk to them about things that were going on, and I used to say, I don't know, whatever it was, if I don't know, because I was at boarding school, I was like, do I miss home, or all this kind of stuff, and I would talk to them, and that would actually make me feel better.
You're getting it out.
Yeah, because
instead of like holding
so
it.
it doesn't really matter who you can talk to, anyone, a friend, a brother, a sister, a mum, a dad, a teddy bear. It doesn't, just as long as you're letting it out, that's a good thing.
It's so true. Yeah, because like journaling is something that I really like believe in now. And I wrote a lot as a kid. I was always writing, and I think like writing a diary or whatever can be a really good way of getting those emotions out. If you feel like you can't talk to somebody about them. But yeah, teachers I think are absolutely amazing. I think everyone can hopefully remember like a teacher that's really there for them. My mum as well was just really great with this kind of stuff. Like my mum is very like emotionally intelligent, and she always knew when something was up with me. Like I could never hide it. Like she'd be like, you'd come to my room, she'd be like, you've been crying, and I'd be like, I haven't, and she would just know.
To this day, my mum still knows if I've been crying.
Same.
And would always know what to do. It's quite mad to think that there was like an invincibility, and I understand that our parents aren't invincible, and yet she managed to be such a beacon of support, just to be there solidly.
And it's okay to not feel okay, right? That's the big thing. I think all the time we feel like we have to be okay. Maybe you're at school or at a party or on holidays or in here or where it'll work. And actually it's okay to not be okay. I think that's the big thing.
Well, there's no negative emotions. There are just all different ones. There is happy, there is sad, there is anxious, there is excited. A healthy mind feels them all. You will go high and low. It's how we navigate them. It's how we process them, not feeling them. If we need to feel it, we need to feel it.
That's exactly it.
I think when I was like suffering with depression, I just needed friends to just not expect very much of me. So I think if you've got a friend or a family member who's really feeling down, sometimes they just need someone to like come round, and maybe you'll go round to the house, but maybe you'll both sit there and you'll just be on your phones, or you'll have the telly on. Because I think something that we worry about is, I'm not being much fun, or, I'm not being the life and soul of the party. I'm seeming really boring because I'm not very happy. So sometimes it's just good to take the pressure off and be like, just come and hang out with me, but you don't have to be making jokes and having fun. You can just be sitting there. I think this is a really important campaign because I think it's good to have a really visual metaphor of life's struggles. I think it's really good to remember that we can only take so much, and if we load ourselves up, we're going to fall down. And similarly, if we unload, we offload, if we do things that make things feel a little bit lighter, we're going to be okay. And it's important to think of mental health as not just something you deal with when you're in a really bad place, but something you deal with every day. We're so conscious, aren't we, about eat all your fruits and vegetables and do your exercise and all these things for your physical health. But what we need to do is be doing little things every day for our minds too, otherwise it gets too much.
It's that little well-being toolkit that you can have, the things that you know you can turn to when you can start to feel the spiral, not when you've got there, not when it's too late. And you're so right, that metaphor is so visual and visceral. That feeling of it bubbling up, I feel like I'm going to explode. Sometimes we'll listen if it's our body telling us, but not if it's our mind. And knowing that it can feel quite physical as well as mental, like a backpack that's too heavy would, is something that we can now know to listen to. And I think if kids see that, understand that, hear that, know it's okay to talk, know it's okay to unload together, then, you know, the better for everyone.
And I think the campaign is amazing because I think we all have a backpack and everyone is carrying their own situations within the backpack, and it's okay. It doesn't matter what you're feeling, and never feeling like you're different or strange or that you can't talk about it, because we all have our backpacks on. They're all full of different things and everyone's in it together.